Okay, today we're going to be talking about identifying existing hair color, whether that be natural hair color or artificial color. We need to identify that. We need to know where we're starting from so we can then determine where we're going. What formula will get us to the point where it will be the desired color that the person wants. Okay, so you see there a blurred out picture of hair swatches, and it basically is showing this. This is your best friend. You need to know where you're starting from. So you are going to be holding this up and you're going to be looking at the client's hair. You're going to sort of be spreading this apart so it's not all in a clump, and see which one looks the most like your client's hair color. Okay, if they have artificial color on and it's grown out, you're going to need to do that here where it's grown out, and you're going to need to do it here where the artificial color is. Okay, so they're showing here, this person has some contributing pigment of red, then they're adding some artificial pigment, and there's your final color result. Again, you have to know where you're beginning from, what your ending, your desired ending is, and then you figure out in between how to get there. All right, melanin. This is the pigment that gives hair its natural color. Okay, so it is inside the cortex. Okay, so this is very important. You need to know the 3 layers of the okay, so you've got the medulla is in the middle. Okay, not everybody has a medulla. If you have fine hair, you do not have a medulla. It has no known function, but we do know if it's present, it makes the hair fatter. Therefore, you don't have fine hair, you have coarser hair, medium or coarser hair. Fine hair pretty much does not have a medulla. In fact, we have hair on our faces and on our body that are so tiny and so small, there's no way they can have a medulla. Okay, so the medulla is in the middle. Then you have the cortex. I'm going to show the cortex as some color pigment. So we've got color in the cortex like this. This might be natural color, this might be artificial color. Whatever that is in the cortex. Then the outer layer is the cuticle. Okay, and the cuticle overlaps like scales. Okay, so whenever you do anything with anything in cosmetology, you got to open those scales up. You got to open that cuticle up, or nothing's going to happen. So if you have someone with very shiny hair, like think of Asian hair, that really black shiny hair, that cuticle is tight. It's shut so tight that's why it looks shiny, because it's a smooth surface and the light bounces off of it and we see shine. The more damaged someone's hair is, the more open the cuticle is, and it looks dry and dull. All right, so you've got everything from one extreme to the other. So a cuticle looks something like this. It looks like maybe fish scales or shingles on a roof. And so we've got this person walking around and they've got, you know, pretty normal looking hair. And then we put a permanent wave on them. And we have to open up those cuticle layers like this. We have to try to get them all to open up. And then the product can go in and curl the hair. The same happens with hair coloring. But some of us want to color our hair and then the next week change the color and then change it again, and let's lighten it and get rid of that color, and let's do something else and let's highlight it. Now we're going to be a different color this week. And eventually what happens is these cuticle strands stop going back together. They stay open all the time. In fact, some of them may be missing from the products. So that kind of hair is called porous hair. It can even be extreme porosity when it's just open all the time like that. When the cuticle scales are very tight like this, and you have to work very, very hard to get products to open them up so that the chemicals changes can happen, these are resistant. This is a resistant hair. Okay, so cuticles should be slightly open. Okay, it's like the door's slightly open. If the door's always open, you got problems. You might have hair color that takes in a couple minutes, but it rinses out in a couple days because those doors aren't going shut anymore to hold them in. Okay, if you have extremely resistant hair like this, you have to work a lot harder to get it to do what you want it to do. Okay, so what we're aiming for is that the cuticle's open, but all it is a protective covering. Okay, it's clear, it's see-through. That's how we can tell what color our hair is. We could see right through it because the pigment again is in the cortex. The cortex is the most important part. That's where everything happens. And again, the medulla has no known purpose, but it does serve to make the hair bigger if you have it. Okay. All right, there's two kinds of melanin that contribute to everybody's hair color. There's eumelanin and there's pheomelanin. All right, so I told you before in a previous class that around here, naturally we see a lot of 4s and 5s just because of the people that settled this area. You know, maybe German descent, English descent, whatever. A lot of 4s and 5s naturally, okay? A 4 and a 5 will have a lot of dark pigment in it. So we're gonna say most of you melanin, most of you have dark hair, okay? So you melanin is dark, okay? Then if you know somebody that has red hair or blonde hair naturally, they have a lot of pheomelanin. So remember, most of you are going to have predominant eumelanin, and we don't see a lot of redheads and blondes in nature, okay? Lots of people are blonde when they're little kids, but when they grow up, their hair darkens. That's why highlighting's so popular. People want to recreate that blonde hair from when they were little kids. All right, so now I don't have just all eumelanin and no pheomelanin. Everybody has a blend of the two. It's just which one you have more of determines your final color. Okay, so if you have a very small concentration of eumelanin, you'll be blonde. Okay, and a dense concentration of pheomelanin will create red. So again, it's just a combination. Okay, gray hair. Okay, so I drew that picture of the hair strand, and now I'm going to draw one. So there's my cuticle. Here's my medulla. Now my cortex still has melanocytes, so melon cells, so cells that used to contain pigment, but now they're in there and they're sitting empty. Maybe not all of them, but each gray hair grows out and that melanin cell, that melanocyte, is still there. It's just empty now. That's why it looks gray. Okay? So it'll be a gradual and complete loss of color. Some people go gray very young, some people when they're older. And this girl, her hair is very similar to mine. I have a mixture, okay? My husband's hair is completely white. Okay, he lost all of his pigment in his melanocytes. But his mom and his dad have perfectly white hair. All of his grandparents had perfectly white hair. My grandma, when she was in her 70s, I finally said, I think you're going gray, Grandma. Okay, so it's just a gradual blending, and then eventually one day I looked at her and decided she was starting to look gray. All right, if someone comes in, when you look at them and they have gray hair, you have to treat them differently than you do pigmented hair. So if they come in and they have gray hair and you see it in their hair, the first question you want to ask yourself is, do you see more dark or do you see more light hair? Okay, so you're somewhere, you're somewhere in here. You have to make that determination. Do I see more dark hair? Do I see more light hair? If you see more light hair, then you're going to say maybe they're 50 to 75% gray. You start going that way. Okay, if they are gray, they're getting that gray, the hair will appear lighter overall. When you apply the color, say that they want a level 5 as their color, you have to apply color 1 level darker. So you have to adjust for that gray. So instead of applying a 5, you would now go down to a 4 to get the desired color. Now, not everyone wants all the gray covered. A lot of people just want it blended. Okay, so when you look at the colors in here, it was described to me that if you think of it this way, NBs are like iced tea. Think of iced tea in a cup. And it's brown, but you can kind of see through it. Okay? Then think of your N's as coffee. Okay, so it's more black, it's more opaque, you can't see through it. And then think of your NNs as espresso. Okay, very intense. So if you can kind of keep those in your mind, if someone comes in and says, I just want to blend my gray, I don't want to get rid of all of it, okay, because I want it to look natural, you might want to choose from the NBs. If they want to cover it, for the most part, you're going to go with your N's, and if they really want to cover it, you're going to go with your NNs. Okay, now keep in mind that as we age, our skin gets lighter, our hair gets lighter for a reason. Okay, they go together. So if you're 80 and your skin has gotten lighter, it has lost a lot of its pigment, and you go putting jet black on that skin, it just doesn't look right. And you've seen people like that out there. So you try to adjust. I always say, but I've always been a level 5 my whole life. I'm so happy that I'm going gray because my hair looks so much lighter than it used to because of the gray. But if I go completely gray, I don't want to try to stay a 5. That's going to look silly with the aging of my skin and the different tones that will be there. Here's my shot to try blondes. You know, I have relatives that are white, and they put a light blonde on, and they look excellent with white hair, and they look excellent with light blonde hair. Okay, you don't want to go so far away, unless you're like 25 and you've gone completely gray, then go for it. Your skin tones will handle it. But when you're aging, it looks silly to keep going back to those super dark colors. All right, if you look at them and they look more dark, okay, so you're like, I'm seeing a lot more dark hair than I am seeing light. Now you're looking this way. Now you want to go 1 level lighter. So in my example, they wanted level 5. Now you're going to use a level 6. And I have a client I used to do, it was a perfect example of this. She was a level 5, and when I would look at her regrowth, I could probably count the grays on her head. She might have had like 10 grays that I could see from here to here on her part. So if I would have put a 5 on, she would have looked really dark and it would have looked unnatural. Instead, I would use a 6 on her. It would take away her grays. It did not make the rest of her hair any darker, and nobody knew any different. It was perfect. Okay? All right, so they're talking about that there. Okay, introducing darker color strands in a strategic placement. You know, it looks like they didn't apply it by the edges where people tend to get gray naturally. And then this fella, he does look younger. They went ahead and put dark color all over. Okay, level of hair color can be identified as on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is the darkest, 10 is the lightest. Okay, so they're classifying 1 through 4 as dark, 5 through 8 as medium, and 9 through 12 as light, if it goes up that high. All right, so when I said most people around here are 4 or 5, they're right on the edge of that dark and medium. All right, and you can see a great picture there of them determining her hair color. They're holding the swatch up right to her head. Now, we're going to be doing a mannequin. You're going to be doing a group project with a bunch of other people. And this mannequin has 4 different colors on her head. And you are going to have to hold that up and determine what color that mannequin is in each section. Then randomly, I'm going to have slips of paper and you're going to pull it out, because when a client comes in, you don't get to determine what color they want. They tell you what they want. And you will have to turn each section into the color that you drew. So if she is a blonde in here and she wants to be a 5R, your formula is going to be quite different than if she's a 4 and she wants to be a 5R. You can't mix it all the same and slap it on all 4 sections and think it's going to turn out the same. It's not. Okay, so that's going to be something that we're going to be doing as we advance through here. Okay, so I said this before, when a client has had a prior hair color service, you need to identify the artificial pigment color and the natural color. You may have 2 formulas. You may have one formula here where the regrowth is and a second formula out here. Very, very possible and even likely. Okay? So it says choose the correct level and tone to achieve the desired warm, cool, and neutral results. Okay? So here are base colors. This book does a good job of it. If you look over here at these bands, it shows you what the base color is on these colors. Like here it's purple and blue, and then you've got some browns, and you got violet, red, red, violet, copper, which would be your red, okay? So some of the same things, and then they just have an example of what manufacturers might call it. So a lot of times you just have to know what they mean, but these guys pretty much show you right away. They call it something, like this is 10P, it's a platinum, a 10 platinum, it has a purple base. So all these letters mean something. I've got a 6A, I've got a 6 ash, and it tells you right there, ash, and it's got a blue base. I've got a 4RB, a 4 red brown, okay, and that's the base. And we actually have RVs, so it has more red than violet, and we have VRs. There's more violet than red. So the order that the letters come in make a difference as well. Okay, we've got some gold, some 10G, some warm beige. Okay, so everything has a reason why it is numbered and indicated that way. Okay, so we need to decide, is the hair dark, medium, medium light, light? This is artificial hair color. And is it warm, cool, or neutral? So here's some really good pictures here of, here's a black and white showing you everything from dark to light. Then it's showing you in warm tones, cool tones, what that might look like, and neutral tones. Okay, so it's important that you know. If someone comes in and they say, I want my hair to be silver, you are definitely going to be in the cool tones with a purple base. If they say, I want my hair to be red, you are definitely going to be in the warm side of things. Okay, additional considerations. Fine, medium, and coarse texture. My hair's all tousled up and it's texturized, and I can texturize it when I cut it, but this texture we're talking about now is how big is each hair strand. Okay, there's people that have coarse hair, but they have very few hairs on their head. Then there's people that have fine hair and they have tons and tons of hair on their head. So it's not density. Density, let me get this here. Density is when you take 1 square inch of scalp and see how many hairs are growing out of it. Okay, sorry, my dots are, so you got that. and then you've got this. Okay, this is much denser than this. There's more hairs. But now we have to say, how big is each hair? Fine, medium, or coarse, okay? Coarse hair is resistant to lightening and may appear to process slightly lighter when depositing color. Okay, think about this. It's bigger, okay? So everything you want to do has to travel in further. So whether you're trying to remove pigment and lighten the hair, or you're trying to add color to the hair, it has to travel further to do its job. So when you're trying to remove it, it may be resistant. You may not be able to get all of that pigment out of there in the time you think because it has to travel so far in. When you deposit it, think of it like this. I've got this big hair, here's my medulla in the middle, and I'm going to deposit some color in there, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 color molecules in that hair. Now let me do the same thing with a fine piece of hair. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Which one is going to look darker? The fine one. It's more tightly grouped together. So it's obviously going to look darker. This is spread apart. It's not going to look as dark. Medium hair has an average response. Fine hair is generally less resistant. If I'm going to go in there and I am going to try to remove this pigment, I have very short distance to go. I'm going to get in there and get it out. Okay? May appear to process darker. So this is another thing you have to think about. Their hair's fine. Maybe I should move up a level, lighter, so that it doesn't look too dark. Okay, and it's saying when you're lightening or removing color, use a mild lightener. You don't need the big guns. Okay, porosity. Talked about this before. I've got resistant porosity. Tight, 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 tight. I got to work like a mad woman to get this to open up to do anything. I've got average porosity. It's slightly raised. Okay, the door's open. I can stick my foot in there and open it further with my products that open up the cuticle, and I can get in there and do what I need to do. Extreme, you can see how broken that is. So this extreme is like, whoo, it is open, open, open. And like I said, parts of it may even be missing. You can see there's chunks taken out. So when you constantly do things to your hair, this is what happens to it, okay? Then you start getting funky colors when you try to work with it because it's so porous, it just pulls in. It might pull in those base colors and not the color you want. Okay, so you got to give your hair a break. All right, to determine porosity, select a small section of hair, hold the ends and slide your thumb and forefinger along the strand towards the scalp. The more rough the hair feels and the easier the hair back combs, the greater the porosity. So you just take it and you're trying to get it to tease. You're trying to see if it will pull apart, not that you're pulling the hair apart, but there's a lot of shorter ends and you can tease that section of hair. The easier you can tease it, the more porous it is. Okay, and the rougher it feels, the more porous it is. All right, let's check what you know. So you need a piece of paper and you need to number it. There's more than 4. Okay, at this point, I'm going to tell you to pause it while you grab that piece of paper and pencil. And when you're ready, let's go. When changing the color of hair, keep in mind that the final color result is the combination of the existing contributing pigment and the color that's applied, true or false. Number 2, melanin is determined through blank blank. Number 3, a dense amount of pheomelanin produces what color hair? And the primary factor of gray hair is, okay, let's go to the next page. Levels range from blank to blank or blank to blank. So the ones that we use, what are the levels, but some manufacturers might have this. Texture is a consideration that describes the degree of coarseness, or like my hair. Porosity is the ability of the hair to absorb moisture, liquids, or, okay, it's like Bounty, the quicker picker upper. The more open this is, the more porous, the faster it's going to absorb things. All right, let's see what we got. All right, number 1 is true. Number 2, melanin is determined through genetic coding. Obviously, you get the color of your hair through genetics from your mom and your dad. Okay? Genetic coding. Dense amount of pheomelanin produces red hair, not like all of you with your darker hair. And the primary factor of gray hair is heredity. I gave you that example. I've got a grandma that didn't look like she was gray till she was 70. On the other side, I had my dad and his parents all went white. Okay, so obviously I seem to be leaning more towards my mom's side in the fact that my hair isn't all white yet. Levels range from 1 to 10 or 1 to 12. Texture is a consideration that describes the degree of coarseness or fineness. Like me, I have very fine hair. And porosity is the ability of the hair to absorb moisture, liquids, or chemicals. Okay, that's what we're interested in. So it can absorb moisture, liquid, or chemicals. Perms, relaxers, hair color, lighteners, the list goes on and on. Everything we do in here depends on porosity. All right, thanks very much. And the reason that I don't have a mask on today is because I am teaching to an empty classroom. So I do not have to have a mask on. And I hope you enjoyed this lesson on identifying existing color. Thanks.